I wonder if people understand about opportunity cost. It's a concept that comes from economics. And basically, it can be explained as having only one life or having only one particular thing, and you can't do more than one thing with it. So it's basically a you can't have your cake and eat it kind of idea. So a good example would be the the opportunity cost of eating away your cake now is that of eating it later. So, if you eat your food now, you won't have it to eat later. And if you spend your money now, you won't have it to spend later. If you um, do something that is finite, you won't be able to get it back again, and you will have wasted the opportunity. What is opportunity cost to do with the Abrahamic God? This is an idea that I've been trying to explain to people who um, reject the Abrahamic God, but still want to have the dignity of saying that they believe in God. It's an innate, instinctive response, I think, in many. I think most of us have an apprehension of our vulnerability, our smallness, and the vastness of the world, let alone the universe, the unplumbed depths of the universe. So we know ourselves to be very insignificant, really. And so this knowledge impels us to acknowledge the bigger thing that we are part of, be it the world, the universe, or indeed the deity that is supposed to have created the universe. Monotheism is an attractive idea in that it does make things a lot simpler, doesn't it? You don't have to go to the butchers, to the bakers, to the hardware shop, to the fishmongers, to the, well, you know what I'm getting at. It's one-stop shopping. So a monotheist God is one-stop shopping for all our prayers. But at first it wasn't like this, was it? Because at first when people thought to worship something, they would worship things. They would, I imagine, worship something very beautiful, I don't know, a rock or a tree or a place, a cave, a forest, a mountain, that sort of thing. But they would be material things. They would be, well, physical things. And then later, people worshipped abstract ideas such as oneness, I suppose. Oneness, omnipotence, omniscience, immortality, infallibility, moral perfection, that sort of thing. And eventually they thought themselves into the most powerful God, and the Abrahamic God represents its peak. Because I don't think anyone can think of anything more powerful than the idea of the supreme and eternal Abrahamic God who created the universe, who is omnipotent, eternal, supreme, omniscient, and perfectly moral. And this is the crux of the matter, the perfect morality of the Abrahamic God. People can't quite believe it. I think that is the sticking point. People can imagine themselves, imagine there to be a deity that created the universe, but they can't quite accept that it cares about them as individuals, because they know themselves to be vulnerable and insignificant. And I think really it is pride, in the sense that they don't want to be foolish. They don't want to feel a fool for worshipping something that doesn't exist, or whose quality they are fundamentally mistaken over. I think that must be the problem, the difficulty of believing in the Abrahamic God, and that he knows our minds and will reward good and punish evil in the afterlife, if not in this life. And for some, there may be hatred of the Abrahamic God for making Jews his chosen people, particularly anti-Semites who just can't get over how much they hate Jews and therefore how much they hate God for making Jews his chosen people. I think that is the sticking point of anti-Semites who reject God. And also they are angry. They are angry that they have, not they perhaps, but their parents, their grandparents, their ancestors have been worshipping a Jew, a dead Jew on a stick. They have been worshipping him for about 2,000 years. And I don't think they can get over the shame and the humiliation of being made to believe in this absurdity, and to finally realize that they have been worshipping a deceased Jew. I can imagine the self-loathing one might feel for the Abrahamic God. I really think I can. In fact, I should be credited with this ability to understand the feelings, the anger, the rage of this cosmic fraud having been perpetrated on the post-Christian Westerner. I do understand. I think if it were me, I would be very angry. But how I would react in that anger would not be rejection of the Abrahamic God wholesale, because, well, first you have to reconcile the idea of what kind of monotheist God you want to believe in. Do you want to believe in a God that is indifferent to you? Well, then he would have no societal or government purpose, because if you don't believe in the Abrahamic God, then obviously you won't be following his laws. And if you don't follow his laws, you are foregoing the opportunity of following his laws. And for this reason, the existence of Jews is important in making you think again. Because in these times of identity crisis, it is only to be expected that people crave a respectable identity that doesn't make them feel ashamed and full of self-loathing, having been tricked into worshipping a Jew, if not themselves personally, their ancestors. And to think that they have been worshipping a Jew. Because Christianity is this peculiar religion of anti-Semites who worship a Jew. How are you going to get over this absurdity? Except, I would argue, by converting to Islam. But that's, of course, your choice. You could reject the Abrahamic God altogether and go into atheist Buddhism or idolatrous Hinduism. But I just don't see the point of it, because you already know that the Eastern religions are just not good enough, are they? I mean, Hinduism is the religion of a twice fallen civilization. It fell to the Mughals, i.e. the Muslims, and then it fell to the British. So why would you go back there? Particularly after I've told you that Hinduism does not have scripture that would give you the rule of law. And by the rule of law, I mean the belief that God knows your mind and knows when you break his laws. So if you don't have this concept in your head of the policeman in your head, that is the Abrahamic God that you let into your mind when you choose to believe in him, then your society will not have the rule of law. People will break the law when they think they can get away with it. And they do it increasingly now. So, for this reason, the Eastern religions should be firmly rejected, airily dismissed. Just not good enough. Because if you're going to be choosing a new religion for your nation, choose the best one, not the religion of fallen civilizations. Or civilizations who are nowhere now, really. I mean, have you heard of well, I know that there's one Buddhist empire, but it's extinct. I mean, the most. I mean, what Buddhist regions of the world can you think of? There's Thailand, with the land of the ladyboys, and there's Tibet, which is just part of China. So not exactly successful. And if you're going to ask about China, well, China's abandoned its religion of ancestor worship and now worships the ideas of a self-hating German Jew. Or at least it officially adopts the idea of dialectical materialism, which is really a truism, in that it's obvious that people have different ideas, and people with different ideas fight each other, and one side wins, and then another different idea fights the winner of the previous ideological war, and so it goes on. It's not terribly helpful, really, but it does vaguely correspond to reality, and the Chinese have decided to go with it. But the Chinese have the ideas of Confucianism, which officially operates in the mind of the Chinese. I doubt if most Chinese people really practice it or carry it out. But anyway, I guess it's like Christians thinking, or people who identify as cultural Christians, thinking they're Christian when they eat chocolate eggs at Easter, eat turkey at Christmas, or whatever it is that they do. So on the question of why we should behave as if we believed in the Abrahamic God, I'm saying, well, we need to obey some laws for the good of our society so we can enjoy a sense of pride in ourselves, our nation, our government, our civilization. And I don't think that Westerners are enjoying being Western because they are mostly angry and frightened at the way their government is governing them. They are full of self-loathing because of the enormity of the cosmic fraud that has been perpetrated on them for about 2,000 years, in that they know that their ancestors have been tricked or forced into worshipping a dead Jew on a stick. And they know that they don't really believe in it. They only pretend to believe in it. And they go to church and meet other people who claim to believe in it, but it's an empty exercise, because going to a different church or just going to church on Sundays is not going to change your politics if you're not thinking about it properly. And when you think of how many times Christianity has already been rejected and already failed, I'm afraid, in a way, there is no excuse for it. So, originally, Christianity came into being when Constantine the Great adopted it as his imperial religion. And basically the deal that the Catholic Church did with the emperor was that it would support the emperor with this idea of the divine right to rule, the divine right of kings. And after the Roman Empire fell, there was a deal made by the Catholic Church to support the different European monarchies with the divine right to rule. That's all. And then when the Americans got tired of being ruled by a king, supposedly with divine right, they established the American Republic. And before that, when you might have an inkling that the purpose for which Christianity was created, for the political purpose of propping up monarchs, it failed when Charles I of England lost his head in 1649. So it didn't work to protect Charles I. But then, well, you could say, oh well, he was no longer Catholic, and that's why the Pope didn't protest too much when his regicide was when his regicide took place. But the point was that the only thing that could protect you as monarch is to rule your nation well, and then you won't have the problem of rebellion and revolution and regicide and all kinds of unpleasant things. And the regicide of Charles I occurred during the English Reformation, and this was the period when the English were trying hard to decide whether they were Catholic or Protestant. And they didn't really know for sure until after the Glorious Revolution in 1688. The American Revolution then was a rejection of George III, and he was a Christian monarch. And we know that the American Republic has no official religion. And we also know that the Americans, every now and then, they wonder to themselves whether they are a Christian nation. And in fact, there was an application for judicial review in 1892, I think it was, the Church of the Holy Trinity saying that it had the right. It was an Anglican church, and there was some trouble about it importing a vicar because of the Alien Labour Act or something like that. Even then they had laws against alien labour, importing alien labour, and I think the reason was that the Americans already settled there didn't like having to compete against indentured labour. So basically, it was a form of slavery. If you were European and you couldn't afford the passage across the Atlantic, you would have to sell your labour in advance and say, all right, you let me on your ship crossing the Atlantic, and I get there and I work for you for X number of years, and then I can do my own thing. And that was a kind of slave labour, really. So obviously those white people who arrived in the New World on a contract of indentured servitude would be annoying to the locals already there. They were white people too, but obviously they didn't want their wages to be undermined by indentured labour. So they passed an act saying, we don't want those people coming here, taking the bread out of our mouths. So when the Church of the Holy Trinity paid for the passage of this vicar to cross the Atlantic, some people made trouble for the church, and that was presumably why it came before the Supreme Court. And then there was a discussion by Justice Brewer about whether America was Christian or not. So they wanted it both ways. So on the one hand, the Americans wanted to say that they didn't have an official established religion, and on the other, they wanted to say that America was a Christian nation. I hope some legally trained person will further consider this question. in the light of what I've said, because I think it's a very interesting question about American identity. Why were the Americans so keen on insisting that they were Christian? I suppose it's because they thought they were Christian anyway. But anyway, they weren't, America was the kind of nation where when its citizens could be any religion at all, but it still wouldn't have an official religion. So that's how it is in America. And I'm saying that the First Amendment was based on chapter 2, verse 256 of the Quran, and that would make American identity Islamic. And I know Americans hate me for saying that, but the Quran is the holy book of a religion that guarantees freedom of belief. I know it's hard to get your head round that when you think of the reputation that Muslims have. But then I don't think people should judge a religion exclusively by what its adherents do, because, well, nobody's perfect, and there's bound to be criminals who are Jews or Christians or Muslims. So really, to judge a religion properly, you must judge it in theory anyway, and the theory is contained in its scripture, and its scripture would contain those laws that the adherents of that religion are supposed to follow. And it's only through scripture that you know what the hell it is that people are supposed to do anyway. But back to the question of opportunity cost. I'm saying that if you want to worship a monotheist God that you don't believe gave you any laws, then you're not having the full benefit of religion. And if you're not, you'll always fall behind those Jews that you dislike, because whether you like them or not, Jews are the world's most ancient and powerful tribe. And why did God create Jews? I think it's to annoy Gentiles. Should Gentiles accept a God that deliberately sets out to irritate them with Jews? Well, I think it's a learning process, isn't it? A lot of us don't really want to learn anything. We just want to, loll around and drink wine, listen to music, have a good time, when we're not particularly intellectually curious. And perhaps we just won't learn until things happen to us to make us learn. And perhaps that is why Jews were created Jews were made God's chosen people to irritate the Gentile. Irritants can produce good things. If you think of oysters and pearls, and perhaps we should just accept the way life is and how we are. Otherwise, we wouldn't ever learn anything if we just did everything our way, and we wouldn't go anywhere. We wouldn't do anything. Well, we wouldn't go to school, would we? We wouldn't go to work. We wouldn't. There are lots of things we wouldn't do if we didn't have to. So this is just a thought, and the opportunity cost of worshipping an indifferent God would be, the difference between the kind of civilization we would have if we had a moral and legal political system that created the rule of law. And by the rule of law, I mean the innate desire to obey the law. I'll read the chat.
Hi, Mum.
I don't know. I don't know. Agnostic, probably, or atheist. $17. When did you have 17 viewers? Conops? I didn't even know you had a channel. Have you got a new one? You started because I know you were kind of getting into it the other day on my yes, I see 59 subscribers. I don't see how you could have had. This channel doesn't have any content. So what are you on about, Conops? So, what was I saying? The opportunity cost of not worshipping the Abrahamic God. Well, I think it would be pretty considerable when you think of, I don't know, a civilization like India and a civilization like China and, well, America in its heyday, Russia, Iran. You think of all these old civilizations and you think of what they might have been if they had a different religion. You can sort of, go through all the religions that you can think of. The Easter Islanders, whatever. So I think it's worth considering the opportunity cost of not following God's laws. Because I know that a lot of post-Christian Westerners are feeling, angry and cheated and bitter and foolish for being made to worship a Jew. But Christianity did a few good things for European civilization. I mean, I really think the art, the architecture, the music is a tribute to European ingenuity. I mean, why is European music so attractive and so universally appealing? I mean, compared to the clinky plonky music of the Far East, it's just gongs and cymbals and loud noise, and I think it is because idolatry is a natural inclination. People are materialistic. They incline to things. They're not cerebral. They don't like meditation. Thinking and contemplating. They just want to center themselves on things. Statues, idols, and this means that if you don't think about ideas, important ideas, you fail to grasp them properly, and you deprive yourself of the benefit of abstract concepts such as justice, liberty, the rule of law, that kind of thing. I don't know if I've explained it very well, but I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying until it is finally understood.